Hello and welcome to tonight's session. I'm Barbara Doran. I'm the Director of the Creative Intelligence and Strategic Innovation course. And I'd like to start tonight by acknowledging the land that we're on. We're here at UTS and we are on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging, and the land that the buildings that we are sitting in here tonight are standing on. I'd also like to welcome you. Thank you very much for coming, and I hope tonight you become inspired and your interest and understanding about what we're doing here in this very unique program becomes magnified for you. I would like to welcome everybody here. We've got a really great panel here to talk about the program, to talk about the school, the transdisciplinary school. So we have Martin, who's head of school, Martin Tomitsch. We have Simon Banks, who is an innovator and educator and inspirer of creativity out there in the real world, changing things. And we have Christina, who is one of our first alumni from the program, and is also a principal at a very big school that is doing wonderful things in Sydney. So I just thought I'd start off by giving you a quick overview about what the program is about. The CISI, as we like to call it, or the Creative Intelligence and Strategic Innovation Program, has been set up to respond to the world that we are living in now. And we are living in a world that has challenges in front of us that have never been navigated before in time. We have technology around us that is changing radically our lives. It's networking our lives. We have complexity in front of us that we've never had to navigate before. And we have a very dynamic, moving and interconnected, networked world that we need to respond to. So we need creativity in a way that we haven't been taught. We are all creative. This is a foundation in our program. We really believe that creativity is not only something that we need to harness, but it is something that we all have, but it is underdeveloped in us. And so we can harness unrealized potential by stepping into this space that we call creativity, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the program. And then we call it strategic innovation, because to innovate and to move forward and actually manifest some of the ideas, we need to work with each other, and we need to be able to think about how we're going to work with these dynamic situations, and that requires strategic thinking. But I would hazard to say that it's creative strategic thinking. So this is how we have. This is why we've set up the program. It's a program that is looking to create the skills and the capacities that we need to face the future. It's also filling in gaps that we haven't had in our education up to date. Those problems were not necessarily identified, and they certainly weren't built into the education programs that we've all come through. We also know that we need diverse skills, diverse thinking, and we need to be able to work across disciplines in ways that we haven't. And we actually have a plethora of insights and understandings about the way that many of our problems are, because we have been working in silos. So we know that creativity is one of those dynamics that's going to help us move past that. And that's where the idea of transdisciplinarity comes into being. And so I might throw to Martin here to talk about why the Master of Creative Intelligence and Strategic Innovation, or the CISI as I just said, is located in the TD school, or the Transdisciplinary School. So Martin.
Thank you. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks for the beautiful introduction, and great to meet everyone. Thank you everyone for joining this session about the CISI today, our Creative Intelligence and Strategic Innovation program here at UTS. So my name is Martin Tomitsch. I'm the head of the TD school, and TD stands for, as Barbara just mentioned, transdisciplinary. Now the TD school is quite unique, not just here at UTS and in Australia. I would actually say that it's a globally unique institution within a university. I think we all recognizing that we need to work across disciplines, as you just mentioned, Barbara, in order to address and try to tackle the big challenges of our time. But it's actually really hard to do that because for centuries we've been working within disciplines, and that's also how universities structured. That's how universities have grown. They have these disciplinary departments and faculties. And so it's therefore really, really difficult within a university to actually deliver something like transdisciplinary education and programs, and to get our learners coming to university to engage in these transdisciplinary initiatives. And that's why UTS created the TD School, so that there is a place that sits outside of the traditional disciplines. It sits outside of the traditional faculties, across all the faculties, and it brings knowledge from all the disciplines together and uses that unique position to teach our learners that come to UTS new ways of thinking, new ways of collaborating, new ways of solving complex problems. There are a few things that have come across here at the TD School. So I should say I joined the TD School about 6 months ago. I think it's exactly 6 months ago, 1st of August there you go. And so there are a few things that I've come across at the TD School that really, that I think really describe well how we work and how we operate in the TD School. One of those is this idea that we're working across and between disciplines. And that's important because, yes, we're sort of pulling knowledge from the different disciplines, and you work sort of across different disciplines, and you might have an across or interdisciplinary team. But being transdisciplinary is actually different. It's sort of like the space between the disciplines that we carve out, and where something completely new can emerge a new way of thinking or working together can emerge that hasn't existed before, that we didn't know about before. The other thing I really like is one of the slogans we use here in the TD School, which is great minds don't always think alike. And that's so true. And I mean, there's a lot in that. There's also a lot in there in terms of having diversity and diverse points of view, which is really important. Avoiding groupthink. I mean, it's much harder because it's easier if you all think the same way. Then it's easy to make decisions because we all agree, right? So we can quickly get to decisions. But I think there are lots of examples in our recent history, and in particular, I guess, things coming out of Silicon Valley where because people were just thinking the same way, and there was a very uniform way of viewing the world, that we ended up with very problematic situations, systems, solutions, applications. And so by having diverse perspectives, it's much harder. You have to work much harder to find a way to agree or to agree to disagree. And again, that's something that we really value here in the TD School. It's about learning how we can bring these diverse perspectives to a problem we're working on, and how we can bring those together and find a common narrative.
Yeah, and I would say that is one of the things that we would actually include under the gamut of creativity, because it's a form of collaboration, and it's a way of holding space within yourself and holding space within a group so that differences can work alongside each other. And that is a little bit like working in a team. It's finely tuned, it's something that you practice and rehearse over time, and it's a specific kind of sensibility that we haven't had a lot of time and space to put ourselves into.
And it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable not necessarily being able to agree, and it's also uncomfortable not knowing where something goes or what we have to expect in them. And I think what we might be able to talk about this a bit more later during the session, but what our CISI suite, the CISI program also does, is to put people into these situations where they are uncomfortable. And because that's partly really important, because when we're dealing with the complex issues of our time, that is also very uncomfortable, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we can do to make a change and what kind of change will actually occur. But the more often we are being put into these kinds of situations where we feel uncomfortable, the more resilient we also become, and the more we become able to find ways out by drawing on a common set of tools and methods and ways of working.
Yeah, and it's part of that is actually being okay with uncertainty, and then also being prepared to question our own assumptions and biases. So we love what is known. Stepping into a space of what is unknown, and even that idea of what is an unknown starts to really stretch our spaces. And yet that's the kind of stuff that we need to be able to work with. And we really are confronted with those dynamics right in front of us right now. We've had, I think, the warmest July on record. That's uncharted territory. How do we work with that? How do we collectively draw our experiences, our professional expertise, our intel and disciplinary knowledge, and somehow hold space for that, for something different to emerge? And that's, I think, the TD space is about what I would call transformational creativity. But first of all, we need to hold a space for that to happen, and holding space for that in and of itself is an uncomfortable skill set that we haven't been given the time, I think, to explore. So that's one of the things that we do. And in this program, the program is very much designed for people who have professional expertise. You've been out there in the world, you've been trained to have one, maybe two, maybe three realms of disciplinary expertise. It's not that you don't know what to do in the world right now, it's that you are looking for new skills to navigate what lies ahead, and that's the space that you get in this program. So I might throw to, or did you want to say something else?
I just wanted to add that maybe two other things building on what you're saying, in addition to the role of creativity and of course innovation in the program, is also the focus on, there's a need to reframe how we view the world, and that by reframing how we view the world, we can find new ways of doing things. And the other really important part, I think, is understanding systems, or even realizing that we operate within systems. We're not just designing necessarily a thing or dealing with a thing, and it can be a product or a service or customer or whatever. That thing is part of a bigger system, and many of the problems we're facing today are because we only operate in under this, even in economic thinking, we operate under this false belief that everything is isolated and just operates within a controlled environment, and we ignore that this is a bigger system. And so being able to understand the systems and how to manipulate systems is a really important part of the program and what we do in the TD school. And can I say one more thing before we hand to Simon? Just coming back to the point how unique we are, how unique the TD school here at UTS is. It's actually so unique that we have just signed a partnership with the University of Arizona. It's a 10-year partnership where we are going to be teaching our undergraduate program, the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation, together with the University of Arizona in Arizona, and it was just announced today. I thought it's a good opportunity to also talk about that.
Yeah, and I mean, this is another thing that we do in the program and the TD school is we have this approach that learning is for life, and it's intergenerational in the same way that we're talking about living in a connected world that works in a non-linear way. We've probably been taught to work in linear ways, and there's multiple connectivities, and there's life cycles, and there's intergenerational connection, there's interspecies connection, and we need to think like this because we know this, but we haven't been taught to think like this. So this is something that we actively build into the program, and there's what we would call cross-pollination between different life experiences, different learners. So we often go to our BCII or our Bachelor of Creative Intelligence learners, and we learn from them. There's and then we take our masters and the creative intelligence strategic innovation CISI people, and they come into our programs as partners. So there's this rich inter sort of cross-disciplinary and cross-pollination that happens, and that's very much part of how we like to work. And the same goes with our industry partners. So we see ourselves in partnership with everyone who's sort of part of what we would call our living ecology, and we'll talk about our innovation ecology a little bit more. But I might throw to Simon now, because Simon works at the cold front, out there in the world, with people who are working with everyday challenges, but they're also looking to harness their creativity. And we've had lots of conversations, Simon, about like how creativity is a pretty loaded term, and there's a lot of baggage that people bring to the word creativity, and yet it's something that we need, and it's just unpacking it a little bit can actually unleash all kinds of potentialities within us, between us, and in the room. So it's sort of like one of the things that we need to unblock. And then when we unblock that, there's a new landscape in front of us. So Simon, do you want to just share a little bit of what you do and how you do it, and your insights about creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. And when people say, what do you do? So I'm a speaker, author and podcaster on creativity, innovation and design, and a recovering professional artist. So I like to bring in both of those pieces into the work. But look, when they said that what term creativity is so loaded with baggage from primary school, and often from qualitative conversations, so I can have 2,000-3,000 of these. Most of us can remember a time when we got a comment from a teacher at school when we were doing a drawing lesson or something, and they said to us, "Oh, that doesn't look like a car or a horse." So with 10 or 15 minutes, excuse me, of training or whatever it may be, we've expected someone to go, "I want you to be really logical and analytical about producing this picture perfect thing." So then so many people go, "Oh, I'm not creative," because of that one moment. And this follows you through high school, through university, and they go, "Oh, you should maybe try history next year, or try geography, or you didn't dance very good today, that's not your type." So we then have this baggage with us. So a big part of the work I do in organisations is making people feel comfortable in that space when even that word is mentioned. And there's a great saying, it's not around creativity, it's around creative confidence, because we're all creative. If you are born and you have a brain, you are creative, which is everyone. So therefore it's more about that confidence to share my ideas and my creativity, put them out in the world without fear of them being sort of laughed and shot down and that type of thing. So I love to create that environment where people feel safe, so that moments where those serendipitous things can happen, but also give people really practical hands-on tools to play in this space as well. And most importantly, I guess, reimagine this productivity paradox, I like to call it, where you might think that, all right, we need to get where we need to go as quickly as we can, put the accelerator down, vroom, and look, we're hardwired to do this as humans, myself included. Organisations are even more hardwired to do it because we hit our KPIs and we get a few more quickly. But if we just slow down, be curious, take off our blinkers, allow ourselves to be creative, try new things, experiment, make, learn as we go, experiment quickly. Also, when you build those skills in, you just realise that even though you might have slowed down a little bit here, you've actually slowed up, you've actually sped up, I should say, a lot more later on, because you're going in the direction you need to be, because you've opened your eyes and you're providing those solutions that matter, rather than getting a bunch, like I said before, group think together and go, let's solve it, on to the next thing, but you may have solved the wrong thing, or you may not even be asking the right question. So
it's like leaning into the curve, right?
Yeah.
It's slow to go fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard the great saying, it's okay to stumble, but stumble forward. So be okay with that. We'll do some things that may not be perfect the first time, but by doing them, not perfect the first time, we're going to see all the things we could be learning, and then build that into something which is a lot closer to the end product.
So one of the things that you do, Simon, is you don't just sit there as a sage on a stage. You get people in there doing it, and that's one of the best ways to not only learn to collaborate, but to step into the situation and do it yourself. So we can sit there and talk about it as much as we like, but unless we do it, we're never going to build the confidence. We're never going to build the experience. So this is very much part of how we work. We are about the experience. We're about putting this to practice from the moment that you do it. We're not about content delivery and sort of that kind of parroting type approach. Like, I'll tell you this, tell me it back. It's about do it, learn from it, reflect on it, observe what's going on. So I believe you've got a drawing exercise for us all.
Yeah, absolutely.
We probably should have our pens here too, hey?
Now, just before we start, this is a drawing exercise, so this is not something you just watch and go, "Oh, I've got it." You have to follow along. So I want to make sure you've got an A4, A3 piece of paper, and we'll do it portrait style, and I want you to have that ready in front of you. Now, the reason I use a lot of visuals, visual communication, visual storytelling is so often we do things like this. We do all our thinking like this. This is bullet point land. However, as we've been speaking about, the world doesn't look like this. It's not 5 easy steps and bullet points. So what I like to do is give people some frameworks to draw and create these frameworks, which gives you a whole brand new way of thinking, creates new connections in your brain, and just by using your hands, all of a sudden you're getting all these messages up and down your arms, and all different parts of your brain are connecting. So this framework, this was born out of a drawing exercise or a drawing class I was having, and someone said, look, you might have heard of that Stephen Covey above the water, below the water sort of iceberg. And she said, oh, Simon, I've done something like that, but when I draw it, it doesn't look as amazing as I thought. And she said, it just looks like, a sort of a big turd in the water, okay? So she says, I don't, the Bondi iceberg, that might be called. So she said, how can I create something which shows this above the ground, below the ground? And it got me thinking of a different framework to use and something which is really easy. And I really like this idea of a tree. Now, trees are traditionally really hard to draw. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to make sure you're following along. We're going to put a line in the middle of our page like this. And the great thing when we do this, people are so scared when they see coloured textures. All of a sudden, we've broken down a little bit of that fear. Now, above the ground, we're going to start drawing our tree. Now, this is what I call, I'm going to reference a show that used to be on the ABC about 30 or 40 years ago, The Magic Roundabout. Please look it up if you've never watched it. It's this quite trippy show. So we're going to draw a line that looks like that. Okay, and this is one side of our tree. We're going to draw another line like this. And then all of a sudden, we're just going to start to build these lines out. Now, it's pretty easy to see that this is something that looks a little bit like a tree. Okay, and we look at that and we go, oh yeah, I get that, okay. So imagine this is your above the ground framework. But as with all problems and all challenges or most situations, it's not just one thing that we see, there are the things we don't see and the things that support it as well. So underneath this, we can start to put a root system. And see, these are just really simple lines, and we don't need to try and make them three-dimensional or anything. We're just going to make sort of easy lines, and these can just start to be the way a root system sits under the ground. And just by doing this, all of a sudden, we've got this brand new framework to look around. So imagine you're exploring a problem at work or a challenge. These might be the things that you see above the ground. So these might be your action points. These might be the outcomes. So very easy. You can put some, shapes here and put the words inside them. So all of a sudden, you've got this really nice framework. But underneath it, you've got these things that support it. So these might be your values. These might be, see those things of the duck on the water and he's really calm on top, but then he's going, hell for leather underneath. So these might be some of those supporting things you might need to think about. These might be some of the history of the challenge. So it's a really nice way to start to think about, we've got the above the ground and we've got the below the ground. And just think, if you're having this conversation with your team, think around the type of conversation when you have like this. Okay, here's the 5 key challenges, and it's pretty linear, a bit of a group thing. Does that look like it? Yes. Once we start to create a different way of looking things, all of a sudden you've got a whole brand new framework to talk to your team about, explore that idea. You've got different dimensions of this problem as well. And you can even start to think, like some of these might even start to connect through. Like this one here might be a direct line down to this one here. So see, all of a sudden you start to say, I can see connections and see moving between. And at the same time, once you've done this, you've also gone, ooh, look at me, creative cat, look what I've done. And all of a sudden we've got a little bit more of that creative confidence as well. And people will look at this and where did you learn to do that? But really it's just the confidence and just a few lines and squiggles, which all of a sudden give you a whole brand new story to tell, and is really engaging for the people around you as well. So something just as simple as that, which I like to bring it down to its most simple. We've got a new framework, we've got new ways of working, we've got new dimensions, and we can look at this from a whole bunch of different angles. And what I love is people can come up and go, look at that, look at that, look at that. And when someone touches something kinesthetically, that's why I always know they're in the room, rather than when you sit there and you go, did you get that? And everyone goes, yeah, I've got it. And you've got no idea where that conversation is going. But if you get someone to come up and say, let's talk about this, and they touch it and they explore it, and different things. So there's a really simple way just to start to explore things with a picture. And if you've looked at this and you haven't done it, make sure you sketch this one out, because it's so easy to do.
So with that kind of thing, Simon, do you find that also people get new ideas and there's sort of a different kind of way that people collaborate as well?
Yeah, I love this type of approach, because when you have 3 or 4 people working on the same thing, all of a sudden those ideas are put at you in a way you never would have thought of. Okay, so it's literally information put at you in a new frame. So what things we spoke about, you start to connect different things. You can see patterns. And think around a map of a tube network, same thing, the London Tube Network. It's not done in bullet points, it's done in lines and colours and different things, so we can see connections and patterns, and we can start to go, oh, I can see how these things connect. And also when we're even using one of the Google Maps or something, it's a visual thing as well. We're not they don't give you bullet points. They used to in the old days when it was really hard to use this, but now it's a highly visual thing. So using visuals is such a great way to shift our frame of thinking. But also what I love when we draw, there's that creative confidence, because we deal with what I call that creative ogre, which is that I call our inside voice, which tells you how terrible your drawings may look, and which is why we fear even putting a mark onto a page. So I love it for so many ways, but it's also a really great way to get people together on the same place at once as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where it becomes really interesting to think about how the term creativity is associated with the arts, and it is, but in a different kind of way. Yeah. And so when we start using our instinct to artivai or unblock that skill that is linked to putting pen to paper, making spatial connections, using colour, and we start using it, then there's these pathways that start to come alive, and we start thinking differently. And then I think that's where the really interesting stuff comes up, because people start to realise that there's many ways that you can be creative.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like there's creativities rather than our creativity. And when we've got lots of creativities working together, they might kind of have a continuum, or there's a sort of bleed, in the same way as that the tree metaphor is working, where different kinds of, kinesthetic intelligences and sonic intelligences, all these different things that are part of who we are, or might be part of how we lean into things, start to get a little kind of voice. And then that whole piece around confidence, I think, is so important. It's something that we just haven't had the time to build. And for me, it's like a fitness, in the same way that we would think about sport, or being able to cook something. There's any kind of number of skills that you could look at, and you can go, well, of course, if I only did it once, then I'm not going to be that good at it. And if I don't practice it, I'm not going to be that good at it. And this is the kind of stuff that if we are wanting to step into innovation, if we are wanting to step into creativity, if we are looking to surface ideas that we can't imagine through that dot point linear thinking, then picking up that pen is actually a kind of a strange catalyst.
Yeah, it's a pathway to thinking differently. And the moment you touch the page and to see where your hand goes, and the great thing is it feeds back to you straight away, does this make sense or not? Whereas your bullet point list, or those words, or often the traditional ways of problem solving, doesn't give you the answers as quickly. But I love when you visualise something, you go, that's not what I thought, perfect, because all of a sudden, what is? And all of a sudden you've got this prototyping organism which can start to connect and map with your team as you go.
And this is also actually got another layer to it, because it's a metaphor. Yeah. And metaphors are really powerful kind of creative mediums to play with. Like, one of my favourites is that playing with the metaphor that people often default to, which is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. If you actually stop for a minute and go, do I really want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? And then you start thinking, okay, how else might I what else could I say?
Yeah.
It's amazing how instantly people will start getting creative with each other. So metaphors, whether they're visual or oral or however we want to kind of describe them, because we use them in multiple ways, can become this like very simple little method for actually calling us into kind of creative action. And once you start doing it and you start listening out for metaphors, you'll hear it everywhere around you, and then you can play with it. So creativity is kind of also an attunement to the world around you and the world between us. And once you start noticing it, you can't unnotice it. And it's a bit like complexity and systems thinking as well. When you start seeing the world as a dynamically connected place, you can't kind of look at it as if it wasn't again. So I want to throw to you now, Christina, because you've walked this journey and you have had the experience of working with people who have really diverse backgrounds, and your background is education, your passion is education, but you have, harnessed a whole raft of changes that I would never have dreamt of. I've just loved hearing about your journey and what you put into practice. So can you just tell us a little bit about what it's been like to go through the whole process of the CISI journey?
I think, Simon, you made me think just then, one of the greatest ways, or for any change, you need a collaboration and trust. And the easiest way to develop trust is everyone having an even playing field. So to put an exercise like this, everyone is entering at the same level of vulnerability, and that those hierarchies don't then play out in what occurs. So if you think about education, everyone has been educated. They've had an experience of a system. And so education can be a really hard place to change. And the industrial, linear, pragmatic approach to the world was born in schools, and the notion of the institution of a school. So the being a educator, I went to school, went to uni, went back into school, and so my whole world, ironically, I learned really quickly was that I was my life was time stamped by time, because I have recess at this time and lunch at this time, and when you start hearing what are all these patterns that live in the system you're in, you it's almost like you hover above yourself and realise, oh my goodness, so much of my decision making is this unconsciousness in my day, and so. It's no news to anyone that, there's lots of commentary around education is failing and not necessarily meeting the needs of the current open, dynamic, complex world. And we need to do something to change that. But when you live in a system, you don't understand how much that system is telling you what to do every day innately without you knowing. So the first thing that I loved about joining the course was just hearing people speak about organisations. I didn't even know half the words that lived in an organisation because schools don't have them. And hearing people, talk about the complexity of their work environment or a situation that they were trying to solve, you just understand that the world that you're creating for students is this organisation they're going towards, and so it just helps you to sense make. What am I doing? What's my purpose here? Where are people going? And that the reality is that at the core of every single organisation or every single complexity are the humans. And unless we choose to understand them, then we can't really then change anything. So for me, it was about the first or the biggest learning I took out of it was being able to understand what are all the hidden rules that occur in my day and that occur in the day of everyone around me. And when I started to tune into them and also talking to people who are outside of your context, they tell you the rules that you didn't even know were the rules that you were buying into. And so once you understand that, you can start to unlock some of the changes that you want to make. And so really in our context, it was about getting teachers to stop and pause and unlock slowly some of these puzzle pieces that were holding us in our current paradigm. And again, using simple tools, in meetings, getting them to reframe. Consider, our one of our examples was every school has a year coordinator, and you all would have had one. And my team was sitting and we were thinking, how can one person effectively look after 180 kids and deliver something to them? What world are we in that we decided that was okay, or why would that make sense? So we sat as a team and said, okay, if we reframe what our job is In another situation, what would it be? Oh, would we be like a HR of a, the students are our client, our team. So then we probed into like, what are new emerging HR roles? There's vibe coaches and, all sorts of things in organisations. Why are we doing that for students? And what has happened is the most evolving generative space. So I've got 4 amazing people in the team, and each of them leaning into their strength. But at the core of it is like, what are the values? What do we want to achieve? We want to ensure that our students feel connected, that they have the opportunity to flourish, and that the individuals have that as well. You feel fulfilled when you are thriving and achieving, things that you didn't consider. And just stopping, and before we probed into the next calendar year, we asked the questions, we unlocked this whole suite of time, money, opportunity, and each individual then was able to create something that was for the students based on the values that we held together. And knowing that the biggest thing I think that we've also changed is that notion that nothing that we agree to, we will hold ourselves to. Because as we emerge and as we change, the problem that we are seemingly trying to solve is iterating with us. So we need to create a solution where we are always in a reflective place, where we are still looking at where we want to go and how we can mobilise ourselves to get there.
So that's a really beautiful way of talking about one of the kind of capacities, I guess, that we're aiming to build and generate in this program, is the idea that you can have an idea and you can have it mapped out as much as you like, but you've always got to kind of move with the situation. So there's an aliveness to the context, aliveness to the situation. If it does change, how do we move? How do we respond? And not being so kind of stuck on the railway tracks that we go, well, this is the plan that we've made, so we're not moving, we're not.
Or pulling out the strategy that we used last time to solve the same problem. You've got a suite of things that you can try to just and see where you land.
Yeah.
And spend time trying to immerse, surface the problems rather than jump to the conclusion that you already know what the problem is, because often you invest so much time and energy solving the wrong thing, and then you've got to go back anyway. And and I think being able to get people to feel confident and comfortable in the uncomfortable by showing them and articulating the process at all times. We are navigating this, we won't solve it, but be clear that these are all intentional decisions we're making together and that we'll keep coming back to them, which if anyone is listening that's in education is probably thinking I'm sort of some crazy person, because that's not what schools do. Schools have processes and systems, much like other institutions, military, healthcare. They've all got their way of working, but they're not working. So why do we keep doing it the same way? And I think that's what this course gave me.
And you talked about sort of getting to looking at the values, and that's a really important element of it's the stuff that drives us, the stuff that motivates us, it's the stuff that makes life meaningful. So one of the things that we do like to do is have fun, but and do things that also tap into our diverse context, but in a way that is meaningful. But that finding that space, and that we're talking about the project where you found common values, like people can say things in certain ways, but underneath they're actually maybe connected by something that has a kind of deeper intrinsic driver. And if we can start there, then we can kind of move through what seem like differences.
And that notion of emergence occurs because if we're all aligned with what our values are, and then there's no expectation that each person needs to be present or privy to what is going to emerge. And if you just let those grass shoots, emerge, for want of a better word, when I always think my greatest success is when I don't know something's happened and it's happened, and that's when I know we created an ecosystem, genuinely. And I think the frame I used at the end was moving from garden beds to a rainforest. A rainforest is self-sustaining, and each part of it is contributing to another. And if you can unlock all the rules in your organisation, each person understands their role and how they are part of something. We talked about they're a system. They are themselves an important part of the system, but they need to contribute to and take from it. And then once it self-sustains, and really for us it was understanding we've got educators and we've got students, but both those two groups need to have the same autonomy and agency. Schools are for students, but often it's the teachers telling them what to do. Well, what if you gave the voice and power back to the learner? The whole dynamic changes, that flat hierarchy plays out, and then you just hold on for the ride. Because everything, emerges from that. And you see students use the language, you see students use these tools when they're trying to solve their own, problems. And that's when you realise you've built something that is unique and it's going to live on beyond you, right? All of our goals are to help create systems change, and the only way you do that is by having a legacy that isn't about you anyway. You're just there as a tool. You're one of the cards that you play.
And that, builds the futures. Yeah.
It sounds like it's also like it's about not waiting. It's not about waiting for someone or to give you permission to do that change. And it sounds a bit like for you doing that course, you sort of suddenly realized that you had permission already to drive change, to sort of break out of the existing system. Because if you're within the regulated system, like a school or a university system or any organization, we sort of keep waiting for someone to give us permission to do something differently. But really, we already have permission, right? We just need to do it.
Use our voice and step into the space and take who you take with you. Yeah. And be prepared that people won't be ready, but it's about creating the environment where they feel they can dip their toe in a little bit. And you yourself have to show your vulnerability. All of us entering this were, equally vulnerable in terms of knowing what it was and how it would apply to us. But the application, the frequent application in this course of taking a little example in the subject and playing with it, in your context. I'm going to take that tool and I'm going to use it. And the best part was on a, whatever night it was that we came together, the conversation would all be about how we played with a tool and then what emerged from that. And then you hear someone else play it with a different group of people, and what's the dynamic difference and how does that change? And then you're learning so much from hearing and the conversations around what success looked like or when it didn't work, and then co-strategizing for that person how they could navigate that again. So that those collective distinctive voices and perspectives coming together and seeing the whole situation differently. That's people pay for a life coach or a growth coach. You don't need it. You just need other thinkers around you, and you should be your own coach, which I think, I've made so many connections that I would never have expected to have been able to have because of the course.
Yeah, and that you're really kind of talking about what we would call an innovation ecology, or like we love it. We get hashtag innovation ecology, and because it is an ecology. It's a living system that is self-organising, and then once it is in a state of flourishing, it will continue to flourish. So you sort of seed those conditions, and they will continue to grow in surprising ways.
Instead of doing unto something, you're being done with it and for it and by it.
And you also pointed out to something that I feel like we should flag, is that the whole way that this course is done is so that you take it straight out to your world and you put it into practice. It's like this sort of dynamic dance between what you learn, all these tools and methods, all these other people and their different ways of working, and there's this kind of dynamic cross-pollination, and then you take it out tomorrow and you do it at work, or you do it wherever your context is. So you're constantly trialing it, and you've got what we would call critical creative friends, where you can come back and I tried this and that worked and that was surprising and that wasn't, and how do I keep evolving? And then when you finish, it's not like you're finished, you've actually got this network of people that continue to support you, because you do need people to bounce off as well. And that, there are constantly these situations that we're going, haven't done this before, what should I do here? I thought I could do this. So that's a big part of it. And you talked about how you have this sort of dynamic kind of cross-pollination between people who are doing something over in a discipline or a realm over here, and you would never have thought of doing that in your situation, but you've got this kind of way of adapting it and moulding it and getting new ideas as well.
And like I said earlier, at the core of all problems, with regards to the organisation, are the humans. And when you hear people working with humans in different ways, you can think, oh, I'm really stuck here, and I've got this problem and I can't shift it. But then you will recall, someone else having a similar experience, or they've got a similar character of a person that they're trying to, navigate, and then they throw things your way. One of the great ones, I think I started with it, getting on the balcony. That was, a phrase that I heard in, I think, the first week of the course, and that image in my mind just changed everything I was doing. Like, why aren't I hovering here and having a look down? Like, why am I always in amongst it? And then, slowly you get other people to jump on this balcony with you, and, that you take these little takeaways and then you recontextualise them for your organisation. And the greatest thing is that you learn, you've got this lifelong learning experience, but then you're helping others learn new ways of thinking. And then I think, for me, my whole brain broke, and I've never seen the world, like you said earlier, Barbara, once you tune this tool, you can't unsee the world that way. And then I think it impacts your whole life. You as a person subscribe to so many constructs and so many things, and until you can unlock yourself from them as a person, there's no way you're going to be able to unlock that in an organisation with people that you're in. So it's a personally life-changing reframing and recalibration of you as an individual, and then the world that you work in.
Yeah, we talk about it being intrapersonal and interpersonal. Because it's about thinking, and it's about perception, and that involves us, and then it involves how we work with others. And it's not rocket science, it's not intractable, it's just a living, dynamic way. And it's not even a blame thing. I think sometimes people think, why did I learn that, or whatever. It's not, it's a pattern of being, and we've learnt to process the world in one particular way, and we can widen that, change it, make connections.
I think it just gives you a consciousness to your world that you might not have had, because the world teaches you. Innately, we want to get to our destination in the quickest way. The world taught us that. HSC taught you that, right? Kids play the system. I know what to do to get to that destination. And the more that we created really easy situations to navigate and rules to break, we learnt less and less to be conscious, because we learnt how to play a game. And right now, the world is telling you that there is gamification, there is AI that will direct you. It will change. Your world could be predetermined for you if you wish, but you now more than ever need to be conscious and present in it and understand your role in it, because we can't have a societal change unless the individuals in it want to change and be present and conscious in it. And you only have to look at young people. They're the most conscious group, I think. They are so aware of their world and of the societal issues that we are facing around climate change and, there's so many you can think of. But the danger is they are conscious, but not individually conscious yet. And so I think this really gives you that individual consciousness to decide who are you in your world and how you have a call to action to impact it. And if you want some tools to do that, this is the course for you to get them, well, I think anyway.
And that kind of bounces to one of our questions that we've had from the audience or out there, is how do we deal with AI in this program, in the CISI program? So I think I might bounce that around, and I might throw it to you, Martin, first of all. Just how do we in TD school, and how does this program, and by extension, respond to AI, which is everywhere and growing very fast?
Well, I want to pick up on something that Christina said about how we learn or sort of grow up thinking that we live in a world where we play games and it's about winning a game, and in a way that's connected to that question, because games are about rules and AI is about understanding rules and following rules. And I think it's Simon Sinek who pointed out that organizations operate as if they were playing a finite game, like a game with clear rules, where it's clear how to win in a situation, and as if there was a point where you can actually win, but that's not true, right? We actually live in a world that is infinite, and there are no clear rules, and things keep changing all the time. And so, in a way, to answer your question, AI for us as educators, I guess, needs to become another tool that we use and learn how to use, but also help our learners to understand how to use. But at the end of the day, it doesn't solve the big problems. Like, it doesn't replace humans, it doesn't replace programs like this, because these things are not about clear rules. But AI is an amazing tool that can augment our capabilities. And I think that's really important and a big challenge, of course, for us as a university and educators, and for anyone in any organization to understand how to use it as a tool.
And I just think I want to extend that by throwing to you, Simon, and sort of like, what do you think the significance of creativity is in that mix?
Well, I heard the other day saying it won't be the creators of AI that make money, it'll be the users of AI. So I think very at its heart there is how we use it, because there are so many applications. So how we apply it, and how we reinvent things, and how we use it to do even bigger and better things. I think that's what's really exciting. But I also heard someone say the other day, look, I don't want AI to replace my nights out around a campfire with my friends, telling stories, having a good time. So I think underneath that, there's something human in us, which is those unique experiences, those serendipitous moments, those chance encounters, those freedom within the framework to do things which we mightn't have seen. And so I sort of think they're buddies rather than enemies. That's the way I like to think about it. And I think that's a nice way to. Humans are lovely things. So.
Yeah, we like being human.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the other thing, Christina, is that when the whole course is structured in such a way that you're not engaged in the conventional way that we have been taught to kind of get engaged with education, which is sort of like, here's some content, digest it, and tell me it back again. This is not how we work. And so when you're thinking about AI, it's a tool. And do you want to sort of talk about some of the kind of ways that we, work through?
One thing I'll pick up from what you're saying, Simon, is I think the greatest thing AI has done is shown us how much of, I've talked to my students about this, how much of your time is in first gear. Like, how much time are you learning in first gear? Because AI is already doing that. So if you haven't engaged the AI to get yourself into second gear and deep thinking and connected thinking, then you're doing it all wrong. We shouldn't fear it. We should see it as the thing that is helping us make what is redundant thinking in our day solved. And then, most importantly, that AI can do so much for you, but it can't replace your voice and your perspective and your understanding of how you do things. And so what it's showing us is now more than ever, the innate ability to articulate yourself and understand what you believe in and how you believe that is all the more important, because if you are only living in first gear with the rest of the AI, then where are you going to be in the world? Because you'll just you'll be the kid still playing the game while someone's playing you play the game, and that's what you really need to understand. So I think, and the all the assessments, I think if I talk to other people that I work with who do a master's, and there's a dread around, I got to do this 1,000, 2,000 word assignment. And I'm like, I turned the library into a character, and I asked it to talk to me about what's really annoying about it. And then we redesigned it. And people are like, that's your uni? And I'm going, yeah, that's it. So there's so much joy in getting able to play and these tasks are relevant and poignant, and they're experiential. And they are. And my students and I redesigned this whole collaborative learning space, and it is amazing. It's the hub. Teachers and students now just literally, everyone just works in there because it's this co-designed environment that is there to create a shared space, and it literally has nailed its brief, but all through one of my assignments. So yeah, I think there's so much to take away, and you'll never feel like you're doing something for the sake of doing it, which as an educator hurts me at my core, because nothing should be done for the sake of doing it. It should always be done to show or create something new.
Yeah, and to create meaning in life, and a sense that whatever you're doing and wherever you're doing it, there is a purpose, which is again that sort of nexus of creativity and or creativities, as I'm going to keep talking about, because there's working with others. I want to also just pick up on this idea that I think creativity is often thought as wide and plastic and sort of very flexible and malleable, but I think creativity involves criticality as well. It's about being able to make distinctions, to take feedback from failure, to look at the context. It's very much about responding to context and moving across context, and also about collaborating with others and maybe going, okay, all the kinds of different people that you worked in your cohort, there were people who were working in insurance and on big strategic redesigns of, large areas of the state, you weren't just working with teachers, and they're all kind of working in these different ways, and you're hearing these stories and learning from each other, but still this whole thing of like it's what we will call practice-based learning. You're taking that in but critically evaluating it. And I would even suggest that it's about citizenship, and it's about compassion. These are some of the values that are sort of woven into the fabric of the course. And there are some masters that you might take that will have those as part of the program, and then there are others that it's just not part of the program because you're there to learn. So these are some of the qualities that I think are part of what we talk about when we're talking about creativity, and we're also talking about strategically innovating, like bringing this to the ground.
Because the other misconception is that innovation just happens.
Yeah.
People just wake up and change something out of
being innovative too. Yeah.
So I think it's there's so much intentionality, and you can strategically create change and innovation. You just need to know the tools. So I think both of those words have so much baggage associated and a lack of understanding of them. And once you get your hands dirty, you realise that they're much more than.
And on that, which I've heard all night, I've been sort of trying to find the right time to say it, doing things with your hands. Like creativity is a doing word. We often think it's thinking by itself, but really its application is in the world. When we try things, you redesign the library with a new frame around what's annoyed you, sort of thing. And all of a sudden, so I love it, everything's practical and hands-on, and we learn by engaging in the world in a physical sense as well, which sort of comes back to the drawing a little bit. We just got new frameworks, and our hands are part of the way we think and engage and make and create and explore the world, which I think is really exciting, rather than just sort of thinky. So we do some doey as well, and we can.
I think it also changes, like looking at you talk about it, you naturally are then filled with joy and happiness, right? So then when you're trying to think of new possibilities, your state of mind is equally as important as the things that you have. So play and creativity generate new joy and shared space that then is a way to facilitate what you want. Going into a boardroom with a few dot points is probably not going to, certainly not going to get my attention or keep me focused. So,
no joy there.
Absolutely.
No, so these are some of the things that we do actually unpack in a really solid way. We look at the neuroscience of using your hands, the neuroscience of what happens when you actually engage with your whole body. There's a shift in actually how our brains work. We know that there are lots of different organisations out there who actually require people to have tinkered before they get a job, because they think and solve problems in different ways. So this hands-on being in the world is really important. And we also look at some of the kind of psychology and neuroscience of play. And play has been this thing that has been sort of, again, a bit like creativity, boxed off as something that you do as you're a kid and it's childish, but it's actually dynamically linked to learning. And it's engaged in real time, and it's linked to experimentation. So we should be having fun, or we should be at least engrossed. I mean, the term fun can have a whole range of different meanings. So, flow is another word where you just submerged in the moment because something is deeply interesting you, and that is really powerful stuff. And that's the kind of thing that we want to ignite. Had a really great conversation. I just feel like I've got a couple of practical things to wind up with. A lot of people ask us about, how do you get into this program? And the program has really been designed for people who are out there doing, working and busy lives. And we know that, the standard kind of rhythm of semesters doesn't always dance with the way that people work. So this program has been designed to create a number of different entry pathways. We've got 2 formal entry pathways, but if you're interested and you want to start outside of those entry pathways, there are a number of different subjects that you can enter in through as a micro-credential, as a short course outside of the formal enrolment. And that's sort of staggered throughout the year. So we have one opportunity with a subject called frame creation in March, and then we have another one following the masterclass, which is the formal entry portal. That's offered twice a year. Another one called Creative Intelligence Catalyzer. If you do any of those micro-credential subjects while you're sort of waiting to formally enrol, you get what we call recognised prior learning, which means that those subjects are counted and are identical to subjects that are part of the full program. So what we're trying to do is recognise that people are busy, that there might be lots of different points where it's easier for you to jump into the course. And so we wanted to just make it flexible and adaptable, so you can also do the program, you know, fast and intense, or you can do it slow, you can take time out. We work with you to work with your working lives. And as I said, the program in and of itself is designed to wrap around and go straight into your working life, so that it's not something that you have to do as extra. It should enrich, augment, extend, and give you people that you'll be just forever happy to have in your life. So I think that pretty much takes us to the full hour. Thank you everyone for coming tonight, and I think we've got this really rich conversation. And anybody who has any questions about the course, the program, you have the info pack that's been shared online, but also there's an address to contact Katie, who is part of our program, and she's our program catalyser, and she will be there to answer any questions, and we can also organise one-to-one meetings if that would be helpful. Okay, so thanks very much, and have a great night.